Hello everyone. Sorry here. Thank you so much for joining me. I am on the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel today. I have taken over once again, and I am going to be creating a fun project, Halloween themed actually, using these products. I've just been feeling Halloween. It happens usually around this time, and I think the products here are going to be perfect for it. I'm going to be using the Simply Sentiments. I believe it's called the Sweet. So it's that line of Simply Sentiments, and it has all these fun words that you could tag on. It's all sweet related. So the main word is what your biggest pieces are, and you can go sweet, sweeter, sweetest. And then there's a bunch of little elements here that continue with the sentiment. So if you're not familiar with the Simply Sentiments, that's the gist of it, and they're great for just building up sentiments. And there's this die that comes with it. It's a separate, but it coordinates well with the words. So you have each of the sentiments in the different fonts called sweet, sweeter, sweetest, and it has the shadow dies. And I believe, I'm not going to say that, but I feel like the shadow dies will cut out these. So if you buy both, they will work together. I'm pretty certain. And then I have the candy jar. This is, I love this. The candy jar, and I don't know if I'll be using all the elements. I have it all bundled, but I have the stamp, there are stencils, and then there's the coordinating dies. And there's actually two types of stencils. I just realized that I have misplaced the other stencils, so I will find it, but it will allow you to use your ink blending to color these. And then this stencil is more for masking. So you can take this big piece over top, or you can use the whole stencil to color the inside. So I will find the other stencil before I start recording the rest of the card making. This one is Retired. I believe it's called. I believe that's what it's called, is Retired. And I just checked, and I think there's like 2 or 3, but I cannot make a Halloween card without this. I wish it wasn't retiring because it is my favorite Trinity stamp stencil. It's just fantastic for Halloween, and it's not gone yet, so I'm still going to use it for this card, but I won't make it a main focus. I'll show you where I'm using it, just so that if you don't get it, then you can use any other stencils from Trinity. It's just, this one's kind of fun because this can have a candy cane type effect. So I'll show you that. So without further ado, let's start making a Halloween candy card. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create our background, and we're going to start with an orange using our blending buddies. These are fantastic for ink blending. They do a nice smooth inking. You just need to take your time, and also don't press so hard. You can go really lightly and just be patient and work it, and making sure you go over both sides to really get that nice. So I'm going to fast forward this pretty quickly just to show you the transition of getting from orange up until purple. So I have essentially orange, and you can't go orange to purple without getting a little mucky. So I'm going to bring in 2 shades of orangey pink, watermelon and wildberry, and then I'll bring in the purple, and now I can create my transition. So you kind of need to have those 2 colors in there, but I use a blending buddy for each color. So I have a pink, an orange, and a purple, and there we go. I'm not worried about the white on the edge. I actually wanted more white to show up, but I got carried away with the coloring. The next thing I'm going to use is the stencil here. This is the candy jar coloring stencil, and the new shading sidekicks. These are fantastic. I love these little brushes. They're nice and soft, and they work really well with these tiny little stencils and get a very good coverage. I'm going to be creating some candy just using the stencil, not the stamp set, and I'm going to be using some oranges, blacks, and then I'll bring in some purples. So we're going to start off with some gumdrops. And then I really like this twirly candy. It's a layered one. It has 2, so I'll make it orange and black, but I really like how that looks. So I'll color one of those up. And then I'm not sure if they have these in the States, but in Canada, when I was a child, they had these they almost look like mints, but they were licorice and orange and white. I'm not sure what the white was. It's licorice and orange flavored candies. And they looked just like these, but they were orange and black and white instead of, typical peppermints. So I definitely had to have those because that was a very nostalgic candy growing up for Halloween. So let's bring out the orange. I've created my gumdrops, and then the stencils work really nice. They actually have the whole outline, even though it won't ink it. It just allows you to know where to place it down over top of your previous one. So the same thing, I'm going to do that. I'm going to move it all up. The top one's not going to matter, but this allows me to create 3 of these candies at once. So I'll do the first 2, and then I'll bring it down to finish off the second one, and it's going to create this fun little trio color. Can't really see it yet. Well, you somewhat can, but once you cut it out, then you'll see that it's a nice little circle. And so those are the candies I'm going to use, and I'll create a row of purple just to tie it in because I want to have some more purple somewhere. And then when I think of these sugary gumdrops, I think of like lots of crystallized sugar on it. So let's add a little bit of dots. I'm just going to do 3 in different areas of each one. And it's kind of just like if the light's hitting it in a certain way, you're going to get that nice little sparkle. Some of them kind of look like little faces now, like little 2 eyes and a nose. But if you kind of look past that, then it looks like a little sugar on the gumdrops. And then now I could have taken the ink directly to the paper, but I didn't want it to be very dark. I wanted to use the little bending brushes to coat this paper. And then I'm going to take that Sweet Sentiment. It's a die. This is the coordinating die to the Simply Sentiment Sweets. And then I'm going to die cut it, and I'm going to make sure it stays in the paper because I'm going to bring in some press and seal. I will say that because this is inked, I have noticed that the press and seal will take off the ink when you do this, at least with my example, what I've noticed. If it was actually purple cardstock, then I think this will work really well. But just take that in consideration that when you're doing this, that press and seal may take off the ink if you're doing it the way I am. But it doesn't bother me. I'll show you what I kind of play around with to see how it works. But for now, we'll put this aside and we have pretty much all of our embellishments. The only thing missing is the rest of the sentiment. So I'm going to take out the 3 additional stamps. These are tiny little fonts. They're called, and it'll be saying "You're a," and then the next one will be "Friend." So there's a tiny little A. You may want to play around with that just a tiny bit with your fingers just to kind of make it so it's not so sticky. I find with small 1-letter words especially, if you even try to touch it with your fingernail to move it, it'll stick. And it can be quite frustrating when you're trying to line those up. So there we go. I'm just going to put this in my stamp positioner, and then we're going to heat set this in some white. Now, for some reason, I lost track and I powdered the top of it, not where the stamp's actually going to be going. And I didn't clue in until I went to go with my second impression. So it's not a big deal. The problem is static, right? So when you try to put that embossing powder on, it's going to stick to the paper more than if you actually had used the dust in the right spot. So you'll see it. I'm going to do it all off camera. You don't need to waste the time showing you how to fix it. You just take a brush, or the other one is the picking tool by Trinity Stamps. It helps as well. And I just pretty much scrape it off, just making sure that everything is nice and clear. And it's not a problem. It's just a little bit more work if you don't do it right the first time. So there we go. And I love this paper. This paper is from Paper Blossom Press, actually. It's their Perfect Sentiment black cardstock. It is smooth, it is pure black, and it really shines with this white embossing powder. So there we go. I'm just going to trim this down to be nice and thin. I think I'm going to trim it down a little bit more. I want a really thin line. And I'm going to I have to cut it off by the window because this black is so black that the shadows are blocking and I can't actually see where to cut. So I had to bring that to my window. Okay, so we got our candy, we have our sentiments. What do we need next? We need our candy jar. This is what's going to hold all of our candy. I have a piece of very light gray cardstock. Do not use white because it will be so blinding. It's just too much. So you want to find a light shade. I like the gray because with Halloween, gray, black, purple, orange, they're really beautiful colors to put together. Now, I wouldn't say gray is actually a color, but in this case, I am going to say it's a color. But it actually works quite well. So that's why I did the gray. Bringing out this stencil, the candy jar coloring stencil again, I was having a hard time seeing how to line this up. So I just took a pencil and just outlined a bit where the groove is. I mentioned earlier, it actually shows you where to line it up, but I was just having a hard time. I think I'm... my eyes are getting worse for wear with the close-up. So I just took a really sharp pencil and kind of dried that up, or lined it up so I can actually see it when I'm lining it. And then I'm going to take a very light gray and very, very lightly using the shading sidekick from Trinity Stamps to color this the stencil. And this is going to add a reflection to our vase here. Very light. You don't need to, with Trinity Stamps brushes, you don't need to press really hard. In fact, if you press too hard, you'll break them. Like you'll spread the bristles and they don't work as well. So you just be kind, just be soft and gentle. Less is better because you can always put more on. You can't take it back. So there we go. I think this looks fantastic. And we'll just use the coordinating die to cut that out. Okay. I think we got all of our pieces now. So what we're going to do is start piling up the candy here. I want that stick to kind of look like it's just balancing in there with all the gumdrops and other candies that are holding it in place. So what I'll do is I'll put that candy there, and then I'm going to start gluing behind because I want some behind and some up front. So once we start positioning them, I got the black and purple behind, and we're kind of building up. Move that aside and get that purple one in there, and I think that's good. So now we'll glue down our candy stick, and then everything else will be on the side and on top because you want to have layers. I'm also being very cognitive and making sure that the candies do not pass that inner line because that is technically where the vase is or the glass jar. So you don't want it to go past that because realistically it couldn't. So, and I'm also trying to make it look like they're stacking. So having gaps in it kind of makes sense if the gummies and the candies are kind of balancing on each other. So we'll just kind of glue them here and there, not thinking too much other than what I had just said. And there we go. This looks delicious. I wish I had this sitting actually, no, I don't, because I would never leave it alone. I'd be constantly eating it instead of actually working on my crafting. I think a black cardstock card base story is going to be perfect for this card. So let's cut, this is an A2 size card. The candy jar is going to be a little bit taller than this. So if you want to go A7, this would be a fantastic. You just have to change the size of all the other pieces that we've gone through. But we're going to stick with an A2. And then here's our background, and I'm going to trim it down by 1/4 of an inch, taking 1/8 of an inch off of every side so it's nice and balanced. You don't really need to do that, but I just like to make sure. It's a nice practice just to make sure that everything is balanced. Okay. So now we're going to put our sentiment on. So I'm going to place the candy jar down so that I have a reference of where to put my sentiment. And now this is a very skinny font, so you need very little glue. I put too much glue on, not a problem. You just got to be quick. Okay, so we'll put this down. I'm going to try to get it really centered in that little orange area between the jar and the edge of the card. And you'll see the glue squeeze because I put a little bit too much. But what we'll do is we'll take off the press and seal. I know it's going to take off some of the paper. You'll see it's taking off some of the color, but not worrying about that right now. Let's get our picking tool and we'll just scrape off very gently the glue that has squeezed off. You want to do that, especially if you're using distress inks because you don't want that ink to react. So just kind of scrape it off, and there we go. And you can see that it kind of peeled it off because that is ink on the paper from my experience. So I decided, let's try something. I decided I would take a Q-tip because that's the smallest thing I have. And I'm just going to very, very, very carefully and softly go around the letters to kind of fill that in. And I keep tightening that cotton swab. Use what you have to make it work. This worked for me because I was able to really finely tune and get right in there. And it worked pretty well. It was able to just least limit that bright white on the font. So never panic. If you start to panic, maybe just step aside and just let it be, and then come back. You might come up with some solutions on how to fix a card. Like you put so much effort into it. You never stop. Just keep going. Okay, we're so close to the end. I'm so excited. I love Halloween so much, and this just worked out so beautifully, this candy jar and sentiments. So we're going to be putting our sentiment, the block on the top and the bottom. So you're a sweet friend. And I think this is absolutely beautiful. That black, bold block sentiment kind of matches with the black cardstock for the card base. I think this is just perfect. Now, normally I would have done this before gluing it to the card base, but I think when I had all these little problems, I kind of forgot the process or the steps. But just be very careful. I'm not wanting a very perfect background, so I'm not even going to go near the edge anyway. So this will work, but normally you do this before. So this is the stencil that I told. It is retired. There's a couple left from what the store says, but I love it so much. And so I started with the white, and then I'm going to use this saltwater taffy that's very similar to that pink in the middle there from when we were doing our blending. And when you're done with this is just the 2 of the 3 stencils, because normally it creates that nice diamond background. This is going to almost make it look like candy cane stripes going in different directions. Now you'll see it, it's so subtle, but it works so beautifully for this. And there you go. You can kind of see it. It almost looks like a white and pink red type candy canes. And when I put the candy jar down, it'll block most of the one side, so then you'll really see it just being these stripes. And I think it's just fantastic. And if you love this stencil and you don't have it, see if you can get it now. Because I don't think it's retired, so it doesn't mean it's coming back. But I just love it, especially for Halloween. This, instead of foam tape, I'm just using 3 layers of scrap cardstock, and I'm gluing those down. This just allows me to have some height to this card so that not everything is flush. So there we go. And then we're going to glue that down. And that's my card. This card is actually going to be my Craft Roulette submission. So I'm double dipping here. And I'm going to submit it after this video has gone live. I hope you enjoyed this. I really love this candy dish. There are so many pieces to it. There's the stencils, the dies, the stamps, a lot of fun. And when you tie it in with that Simply Sentiment stamp set, it just really makes a fantastic card. So I'm so happy that you joined me. I hope that this has created some inspiration for you. And until the next time, have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care. Bye.